As we have seen, Buber believed that the most authentic type of human relationship is an I-thou relationship. And one of the most important features of an I-thou encounter is that it's immediate. It's not mediated by any concepts or categories. It's simply a matter of being in direct relation with the thou. Now, Buber also believed that at the root of all I-thou relations was the ultimate relation with the eternal thou, or what we would ordinarily call God. So every I-thou relation for Buber is also a relationship with God, the eternal thou. Indeed, God for Buber is the one thou that can never become an it. With any other thing, I can relate to it as an it or as a thou. Take our waiter example from earlier. God, however, can never become an it. Any relation with God has to be an I-thou relation. It must be immediate. If it's not, then you're simply not relating to God. But think about what happens when we combine these points. For Buber, a relationship with God has to be an I-thou relationship. But a mediated relationship cannot be. Therefore, it can't be a relationship with God, which needs to be direct, unmediated by any categories. But Jewish law creates general concepts and categories that mediate our relationship with God. So Jewish law simply can't be an expression of an I-thou relationship for Buber, and thus it can't be a way of genuinely relating to God for him. And this was indeed the conclusion that Buber drew. Revelation for Buber had to be distinguished from law. The former was an encounter with God. The latter could not be. In Buber's view, how can we be relating to God immediately and with our whole being when we're worrying about observing a commandment with all its halachic intricacies? So rather, for Buber, in Revelation, something happens to man, but as he puts it, what is revealed is not a content, but a presence. We encounter the presence of God, and that presence guarantees that life is meaningful. But what it cannot be is something that can be, as he puts it, transferred or expressed as a universally valid and generally acceptable piece of knowledge, which in a sense is exactly what mitzvot are. They're generally acceptable to the Jews. They're universal. They govern all of us. Now, we know for Buber that I-thou relationships are fleeting. We can't maintain them for long. We always return to the world of it. So for Buber, therefore, mitzvot are actually our sad attempts to maintain our I-eternal thou encounter. In our thirst for continuity, we create faith and rituals that we can spread out in space and time. Though all we really end up doing is substituting these acts for the real encounter with God, or at least that was Buber's view. Now, Rosenzweig, on the other hand, was unwilling to simply rule out Jewish law in this way as a possible form of revelation. While he admitted that it was sometimes difficult to understand how certain mitzvot were genuinely meaningful encounters with God, rather than immediately rule them out of the religious equation, he wants us to keep the law so that we can experience it as more than just a law. He wants us to experience it as a commandment, as a call from God in which we feel God's presence. But until that point, we must treat it as merely not yet a commandment. Law is simply not yet a commandment in which we encounter God. But the thing is, only doing it can get us to that point. This is the Jewish way for Rosenzweig. The Jewish way includes, as he puts it, not only what is knowable, but also what is doable. And it's doing these mitzvot that identifies us with Jews across all eternity. While Buber thinks he knows in advance what can and can't count as a meaningful encounter with God, and for him mitzvot simply cannot, Rosenzweig believes that we can't prejudge this. Performing mitzvot themselves may bring us to that point of genuine encounter, where law is transformed into commandment. Or possibly, to put it more traditionally, na'aseh v'nishma. First we do, then we'll understand.